Welcome to part 46 of this episode of the haul truck build. I sometimes get the opinion that a lot of people think it's taking forever for this thing to get done, and it does. It is going to take, it has taken forever, and it is going to take forever, figuratively speaking. You have to understand that this process evolves as it goes along. It's not like repairing a truck or repairing a diesel engine where you've got a broken part and you know what the part has to be, and you can go to the auto parts store and pick it up and change it out. This thing changes all the time, and there's different parts from different trucks being used into the whole thing. So it takes a while. It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of figuring out where to get stuff and how to get stuff and why I need stuff. Anyways, I'm over here showing you this because one of the other things that I'm also doing at the same time that I'm doing work on the truck is trying to get this rear axle together so that I can get it in place when I get that leaf springs out of there and cut, which will be an upcoming segment on this. But I'm working on the axle so that I can have the axle put back together and take it over there after I get the axle or the springs cut, and can kind of test fit it in there to see how the air suspension is going to fit. But let's switch over to back to the rear of the haul truck. I'm over here at the haul truck, and I had some comments on my last video of the haul truck, chapter 45. I told them that I was probably I might leave the springs on the truck and cut them with a bandsaw, and I had one guy comment that he probably didn't think it would cut it with a bandsaw, but I just cut the first leaf with a bandsaw. It takes a while. I got to tell you that it takes a while to cut through it, but it does cut it. And I know. See, I'm not. This is the original blade on this Milwaukee bandsaw. And I'm not going to get into Milwaukee bandsaws. I think the Milwaukee products are made in friggin' China now, but I'm not sure about their bandsaws. I've heard conflicting things on it. There's some tools that are made in China, some tools that are not. I'm not sure about the bandsaw, nor am I sure about the integrity of the blade. Here's what I do know. We used bandsaws at work all of the time, portabands, and we got these things that were called bimetal blades, and we would cut on with those things for a year. I mean, we would cut stuff and then switch it up and cut things like stainless steel, and it would still cut it. Probably, I don't want to cut this with a bandsaw. It's going to take forever. I might cut this one just to prove a point, but the other one, hopefully I can get off and take it over to the regular bandsaw and cut it that way. But it does cut with the bandsaw. It took me, well, I got to tell you, that thing is 2.5 inches wide, and I think, no, 3 inches wide. It's 3 inches wide. And what is it? It's probably, one of those leaves are probably 1/4 of an inch thick, maybe 3/16 inch thick, and it probably took me about a minute to get through the first one. But it does cut it. I read the guy's comment, and I'm not gonna say that he was wrong, because he could have been very right about the damn thing. I've never tried to cut a leaf spring before with a portaband. I've kind of cut a lot of stuff with a portaband, but never a leaf spring. So, but it does cut it. And I'm not even sure of that blade. You know, that blade is the blade that came on the saw, and probably some cheapo blade. Okay, as part of the haul truck update, I went out yesterday and picked up these 2 fuel tanks for the haul truck. While I was gone on my road trip to Arkansas and Florida, my grandson Matt saw a couple of these 2 tanks listed on Facebook. No, I don't go on Facebook. I used to have a Facebook account. Well, I probably still have the account, but I haven't been on it in years. Not a believer in Facebook. Long story, but anyways, make a long story short here. He went on Facebook, and apparently Facebook has this selling pages now where people list stuff for sale. He saw these 2 tanks, fuel tanks, and I made the guy, I got a hold of him. Well, my grandson got a hold of the guy that had the listing. We found out it was actually his son had listed it for his father on Facebook. I got the father's telephone number and texted him and made a deal for it. So I drove down to Pennsylvania yesterday and picked these 2 tanks up. They're off of a Peterbilt. They were off of a Peterbilt day cab, and I was actually looking for tanks off of a Peterbilt originally. I was looking for tanks that were originally smaller in diameter and longer. These things are 2 inches in diameter, bigger than the tanks that I were looking for, but they are at the same respect a foot shorter. So what they are, again, as I said, they were off of a Peterbilt. What they are 120-gallon fuel tanks. So I'm going to have 2 120-gallon fuel tanks on the truck. So that's 120-gallon total capacity. It's actually 110 usable gallons, because what it is the fill nozzle is offset to the side so that you can get fuel in it. It kind of, well, it's going to fall under the sleeper, but usually that's what happens, is it falls under something. So they offset the fill nozzle a little bit to the side. So it's 110-gallon usable fuel capacity in each one. So 220 total usable capacity, 240 total capacity. I'll bring you back. What I'm going to do is go over there and try and test fit them. The thing that what I'm looking at right now, I should note that I just got the tanks. I didn't get any brackets, so I'm going to have to come up with brackets for the thing. And I'm also going to be polishing them, so unless I can find somebody to polish them, but that's very unlikely, and it's probably expensive. But what I'm going to do is go over there and just kind of test fit them up under the truck and kind of see how they lay. As I discussed in a minute ago, these fill nozzles are offset to the side, and I just want to see how much of interference it's going to be with the bottom of the sleeper, because that's kind of where they're going to fall. I'll bring you back. Okay, here we are over to the truck, and I brought one of the tanks over, and I've just got it sitting up on a couple of they look like 6x6s or 5x6s or something. But so there's going to be a number of issues. I think there's going to be a number of issues. Let's start out with, I always wanted or always had in mind having end fill tanks. Tanks where the fill nozzle or fill port is at the end of the tank. That way I could have the fill nozzle kind of behind the sleeper so that you could stick it in. Now these two tanks became available, and they have center nozzles. They came off of a day cab, Peterbilt with a day cab on it. So now I have the complication of a couple of things. To begin with, you're probably saying to yourself, well, look at the elevation of it, and it's only sitting up on 5-inch blocks. So that frame has to come way up in the air. Again, remember, I leveled the frame out, or kind of leveled it out. It's no longer level because I have adjusted it after I had welded the thing in there. I had leveled the frame out to weld the extension into the frame. I have raised it up since then just because I was working on those spring things, but it is nowhere near the height that it has to be at. The floor pitches up, so it's just off of level now. It has to come up quite a bit. I don't have a tape measure with me right now, but I'm going to say it probably has got to come up a good 4 to 6 inches. So what the issue is going to be is basically this board represents, the bottom of the board represents the bottom of the sleeper. The end of the board represents how far the sleeper sticks out. The only issue is the sleeper comes back to here, so you can get an idea. Now this tank probably is going to stick out farther than I've got it right now, but you kind of get an idea of what the issue is going to be. This nozzle is buried underneath the sleeper. So there's a couple of options. First of all, I want to get the frame up to an approximate height of where it's going to be. I got to kind of figure out where the brackets put the tank in relationship to the frame. Then I've got to figure out, can I go with a center fill? Because there is always a possibility, and let me take you over to the sleeper and kind of show you what I was kind of thinking of. And again, this is very early in the endeavor, and I'm not really sure what I'm doing. I'm just kind of throwing things in my mind out there and kind of working around if I had to stay with the center fill, what I could do. And let me take you over to the sleeper and kind of show you what I'm thinking about doing. I'm over here to the sleeper, and what I've done is laid the tape measure out to the end of it is approximately where that fill nozzle would be right about now. And by the way, just as a kind of a side note, that frame has to come up 4 to 6 inches. So what I'm thinking about is, and you're not going to be able to see this, I can't get a camera under there. Up underneath the sleeper, it goes up probably a good 4 inches. Now, actually it goes up further than that, but there's a support beam kind of effect in there. What I was thinking about doing, if I had to, is resupporting it and cutting a notch out of it. Now, that really wouldn't look good unless I did it, but what I was thinking about doing was cutting it out and hinging it so that it would go back down in. There would be some kind of a lock that I could put on it, or not a lock, but a clasp that I could put on it that would hold it in place. But when I go to fill the tank, I could just unclasp it, hinge it, flip that up, and put the nozzle into the tank that way. But what I need to do is get I need to get a support bracket, first of all, for the tank, and figure out how it hangs in relationship to the frame, what the elevation is. And then I can raise that frame up and figure out what the relationship to the tank and the ground is, and the tank and the top of the frame in relationship to this. So there's a bunch of things that have to be done. So I've got the tanks, but there's going to be a long process of figuring out if in fact the tanks can work in my application, and how I'm going to make them work, if they will work. But I'll bring you back. Okay, back over here to the truck. And it is the same day that I was doing the tanks. The first day that I got the tanks back in here and was kind of just setting the one tank in position. And this is kind of how my mind works. I started looking at something else and wanted to try and figure out what I'm going to do with that. I want to get the airbags ordered for the front suspension, but I started looking at airbags, and then thinking about if there was going to be any interference issues. So what I did is came over here, got the compressor and the hydraulic pump, and put it back on the engine, just loosely put it back on the engine, so that I could figure out if I had interference issues with those two things, because those are the two things that stick off this side of the engine. Of course, the P pump is up here, but it has nothing to do with an interference issue down there. So yeah, that's where I am. I do not have an interference issue. I am actually going to order a couple of airbags. Now, what I'm going to do, they sell kits that go onto vehicles. Of course, there's not going to be a kit for this, because this is such an oddball configuration of mismatched everything. So all I'm going to do is buy the bags themselves and make the bracketry to support it myself. And of course the airlines will be common airline type of situations going to air suspension. So anyways, there's that. I'm going to get them airbags ordered. Okay, just to let you know, after checking that interference problem, I did order 2 airbags for it. Now, again, if I haven't mentioned this, I will just reiterate that I'm only ordering the airbags, no brackets. I will make the brackets myself. So they have been ordered, and probably I'm going to say it's UPS grounds, free shipping on it. So probably about a week, I'm going to say. I've got to get back on the tank. I'm still waiting for Casey's, the salvage yard, to call me back and let me know if they have any mounting brackets for this tank. I kind of would like to buy a set, not 2 sets, but 1 set, only 1 set, because in case these tanks don't work out, I'm only out one set of brackets on it. Guy said he got a new Peterbilt in today. Well, not a new one, but you know, a new one to them. Got it in today, and he was going to send a guy out and see if the brackets matched the 26-inch tank, or if that Peterbilt model was the one with the narrower, smaller diameter, longer tank. I'm assuming that there are different brackets, since this is a 26-inch tank. Actually, it measures a little more than 26, but I think they call it a 26-inch tank. And the other tanks that I was looking for from Peterbilt are smaller in diameter, 23 inches, but longer, 5 feet, and hold approximately the same amount of fuel. But anyways, bring you back. Okay guys, here's what's going on. After I had ordered those airbags for the front, you know, I came over here and I need to get started on this rear end also. So I've got to wait for the parts for the front end. Got to wait to see if I can get a brackets for the fuel tank, to see what I can do with that. So I figured that I would come over here and try and get this rear leaf spring bracket off, and I did. As you know, that I've been using the grinder on it. What I did is kind of old school shit. I punched it, take a 1/4-inch pilot bit and drill into it. Take a hammer and chisel off of the head of the thing, and then take my drift pin punch, iron worker drift pin punch, and just punch those rivets through, and it worked very well. It worked very, very well. I was able to get them right off, so good thing. So what I'm going to do is, it's getting late, or later in the afternoon, so I'm going to be leaving here pretty soon, but at least I got the one off. Figured out how to do it pretty easily. I mean, it takes a little hammer and chiseling to get those heads off of there, but it comes out pretty good. Kind of like old school rivets. I'll bring you back. So over here to the haul truck, and I have got the second side off. Same process. What I did is drilled in a little bit with a 1/4-inch pilot bit. Chiseled the heads of the rivets off, and then just pounded them through with the punch and hammer. You know, it actually went a lot faster on this side. I had a little more problems getting the rear or the bottom rivets out. As you can see, for some reason those bottom rivets stick in there, but I got it out a lot simpler and faster than I did the other side. But logically, you know, I mean, it seems like the more you do something, the quicker and easier it becomes. So that's out. Gonna disconnect the springs and get them over to the bandsaw to get them cut off. I don't know whether I ever mentioned it. Somebody had commented they didn't think I cut them off with a bandsaw or portaband. I actually did cut one leaf off. It's laying over there, and but I'm gonna take them over to the portaband, take them off. I've got to get them off anyways. I need to get that thing disconnected, clean that pin up, clean those swivel points up, make sure that they're able to be greased very good, and get that cut off. I still got to get the material to make that adapter between the pin on the leaves and the pin that sticks out of the rear axle, the new rear axle. And then that will come out, and I will build off of that to put the air suspension on in the rear. But I will go into detail and explain about everything that I'm going to do and what I need to do as far as building it and stabilizing it goes in another part of the video or another video. I'm over here at the tanks, and I just wanted to explain one thing. You know, I bought these tanks because it was a great price on them. For what they are, it's a great price. The one thing that I kind of like about it is they're old school tanks, and that's a crossover valve on the bottom. But what it is, there's a cast piece of aluminum that is cast with that thread in there and then welded onto the bottom of the tank. So it's a again, that cast piece is you don't find that on newer tanks. So, you know, I kind of bought these tanks in the back of my mind thinking, you know, I'm not sure if the center fill is going to work on these tanks. But again, if I can't get it to work, I can probably swap them out. And I saw potential in these tanks. You know, I took a look at it and I'm thinking those things could be polished up and look good. And I don't have the kind of polisher that you need to polish aluminum. All I've got is that random orbital type polisher that you kind of finish paints with. But let me show you what I kind of did. I just did a little polishing using that on this tank, and by no means is that the true potential of it, but I like these tanks. First off, they have ascending units in them. All of the valves, the caps, everything is there that I need to use them. But if I can't use them, I'll swap them out for tanks that I can use, or sell them and get tanks that I can use. But I kind of like these. They kind of fit with the style of the truck. They're old school. Again, you don't find that cast crossover connection on the bottom of newer style tanks. I'll bring you back. Probably next chapter I'll have the springs off and cut. Hopefully I'll have the material to start building the air suspension in the rear. I really want to get that suspension built, the axle underneath it, and a set of tires, wheels and tires on it. Maybe not all four of them, but just at least two of them, so that I can have a rolling chassis here, so that I can move this chassis cab assembly around the shop. I really need to get, really want to get that sleeper kind of set on here to figure out the mounting procedure for that sleeper too. So not a good location back here to get that sleeper on. There's not a lot of room on either side of it. If I can move it, roll the chassis out into the center of the shop, there's a lot more room over there to manipulate and get the things onto it. But bring you back next week.